Imagine stepping outside and the rain is black, acidic, that burns your eyes and clogs your lungs. This isn't a Final Destination movie. This was Iran in early March after its oil fields were blown up. In just the first 14 days of conflict, the US, Iran, and Israeli war pumped over 5 million tons of CO2 and similar gases into the atmosphere. That's more than what Iceland emits an entire year. And here's what should terrify you. Scientists calculated that humanity could emit roughly 130 billion tons of CO2 to keep temperatures below 1.5 degrees Celsius. The rate which, if we're crossed, increases the chance of triggering irreversible changes, like the ice sheet collapse which will raise sea levels uncontrollably and submerge cities, then the death of the Amazon rainforest and coral reefs, and even the thawing of permafrost which would release more greenhouse gases. But at current rates, we'll cross those 1.5 degrees by just 2028. Wars don't just kill people, they destroy all our chances at living normal lives. Military's already accounted for 5.5% of global greenhouse gas emissions, which is only during peacetime. This comes from production and petroleum and such. Add active conflict to this, your oil facilities exploding, cities burning, and the percentage is much, much more. This war isn't just a geopolitical crisis, it's a climate change. So in this video, we're going to break down what are the direct and hidden climate costs of this war, who is actually benefiting from all this, and what can be done right now to fix the catastrophe. Let's dive right into it and understand where these 5 million tons of CO2 equivalent gases come from. Look at this chart. Around 47% comes from the 20,000 destroyed homes and buildings. Then around 37% comes from the destroyed fuel. The remaining 16% comes from fuel and equipment used from combat, from the bombs and the missiles to the interceptors. Add it up and you have 5 million tons of CO2 in 2 weeks. Now here's where it gets darker. The soot, smoke, oil particles, sulfur compounds released alongside CO2 led to create something called black rain in Tehran. It's acidic, dirty rain that harms everything it falls on. It soaks into the soil and hurts crops. It seeps into drinking water. It kills fish and affects the things that eat the fish, us. This is what scientists call a sacrifice zone, a region where the air, the water, and the land become so contaminated that living there starts slowly killing you. It causes cancer, heart disease, respiratory illnesses, or even strokes. Look at what happened to the sacrifice zones in previous wars. During the Vietnam War, the US sprayed 80 million liters of herbicides across 2.9 million hectares of land. Decades later, that dioxin is still in the soil and food chain. In Japan, uranium contamination left communities dealing with toxic remnants of war long after it ended, including long-term recurring health issues. But that's old news. Let's talk about Russia-Ukraine. The climate cost of the first 2 years of Russia's war on Ukraine was greater than the annual greenhouse gas emissions generated individually by 175 countries. Additionally, the war has led to long-term soil contamination, massive forest destruction, and entire collapses of ecosystems. More than 12,000 square kilometers of nature reserves have been transformed into active war zones, and fires sparked by shelling have consumed over 100,000 hectares of forest and grassland. Wars don't end on the day of the ceasefire. Their environmental damage affects generations. But this is the first part, the climate effects from only the direct destruction. Let's come to phase 2, which is reconstruction. You would not think anything could cause more pollution than war, right? Well, you're wrong. Turns out that rebuilding Gaza and Lebanon will produce 24 times more emissions than the war itself generated. This is because reconstruction involves industrial activity for years and even decades, compared to the short-lived effects of war, but also because it triggers massive global demand, from the mining for raw materials to manufacturing steel and cement and so on. And the third negative impact on climate created by the war is the infinite negative loop. When energy prices spike during war, everything that runs on oil, from food, transportation, manufacturing, etc., gets more expensive. And so inflation rises. And when inflation rises, manufacturing, etc., gets more expensive. Governments shift focus to subsidies, price controls, and welfare spend. And they cut back on what is considered deferrable expenditure, which includes, you guessed it, your climate investment. This sets back the transition away from carbon and contributes to further fueling the climate crisis. So now, this brings us to the question you should actually be furious about. If the normal citizens of the world are not profiting from this war, then who is? It's not a singular government because those change every 5 years. It's something called the military-industrial complex. These are the companies that manufacture the missiles, the jets, the drones, radar systems, and get huge government contracts during the wars. To functionally normal and earn profits, they require wars. They lobby for wars. This then funds the think tanks that justify wars. Look at this. Atlantic Council, Brookings Institution, and others are funded by these contractors. Some of these same companies have been active in lobbying efforts that resulted in military emissions being removed from international climate agreements. Also, listen to this. The single largest institutional emitter on the planet, the United States military, doesn't have to follow the Paris Agreement on emissions. But these companies aren't the only ones. Before the Iraq War took place, reconstruction bids were already being made, and a company called KBR and another Bechtel already won contracts worth billions of dollars before the war ever began. This became a major point of controversy afterwards, suggesting that they may have lobbied for the war itself. And why this is unstoppable is because lawmakers and businessmen are in this together. Government officials rotate between the Pentagon and defense industry boardrooms. Defense contractors sit on the boards of media conglomerates. So the question remains, what's the solution? Well, it's very simple. Investing in renewables. Countries that generate power from their own sun and wind cannot be affected by oil price shocks. They can't be destabilized by shipping disruptions of oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. And they don't even need to send their military to protect fuel infrastructure. Of course, renewables won't stop every war, but they protect us from the many wars that are fundamentally about energy control.